I'm out in the chicken yard getting ready to open up the hens for the morning and let them out. But as things get a little colder and there's a little nip in the air, some frost on the ground in the mornings, I want to make sure this area, their winter run, is optimized and ready to go. And I made a really, I think, sweet upgrade that facilitates compost sifting as well as maximizing chicken interaction. And so I'd like to share that in this video, so stick around. We'll let these ladies out first. We now have, I think, formally a very geriatric flock. We'll need to figure that out as time goes on, maybe sometime this winter, but these old ladies, they're still with us. Probably about 50 hens here, doing pretty nice in their retirement age. Very few eggs, especially coming into winter, but what are you going to do? I digress. Let's get them some nice things happening. It's getting cold enough now that when Sasha comes out to get grain, she fills the bucket with rainwater to start the soaking process, but then brings it inside so that it can start to sprout indoors. We just harvested cabbages yesterday to store in the root cellar, and so the hens got a whole carpet of brassica leaves in here. Looks kind of like a mess, but this will feed them in wonderful ways for sure. But nice hydrated, warm, soaked seed is a great way to start a morning on a cold day. Whatever they miss will sprout. I've talked about that before. Now let's get to the actual idea of this video. In the winter run, I'll link here if you're interested in seeing the build of this. Very, very simple, very low-tech upgrade that is the style with all the things I'm going to do on this channel. We just finished our shipping season, and over time I have looked for at reuse or for used all these different surfaces that can make makeshift tables that can also be easily washed off and put away. And these sturdy metal table surfaces, these were from metal racking systems. I got these for $10 a piece, and these I got for $1 a piece. We don't really use them year round. We use them mainly for shipping season. So for now, they can become these amazing ramps that sift compost for the hens and also create aeration, kind of organize and mix the material together and create shelter and lots of interaction for them. Let me set it up. With the chicken composting system, the theme is always, how do I maximize the amount of surface area and interaction space for the hens, rather than having one single monolithic flat pile of material. You want lots and lots of little bumps all throughout. The more peaked it is, the more unstable the pile, the more interaction the hens can have. And this brings it to a whole new level, quite literally, with a new dimension. So I can load these up and then walk away and know that the hens have something to work on for many hours. Right now, most of the hens are outside eating some seed, but I can clear these this morning, load them all up, and know that they've got material to work on for a bunch of hours, pretty much the whole day. There are hens that'll work on the top of this, and as they're kicking it, because it's at an angle, it'll return the coarsest material to the center walkway. You can see yesterday's kickings brought the material back to here. Now I can either put that in its own compost ring to sift out, or throw it back through the loop again, and over time it'll break down. So it's sift material back to the central walkway, and as they work on it, material falls through that the hens below can interact with. Even this one that's a pretty tall ramp is still gentle enough to let the older hens climb it. It's like a ladder system. And you can see the ones up top are working, and the one below is waiting for stuff. The other thing that this offers, well, first of all, it's sifting, so then the material that's underneath is a little bit further along in the compost sifting process, but there's also radiant heat coming from below, and when these are very thoroughly covered, there's a very warm microclimate under there. We found on the colder days, the oldest hens like to hang out underneath and be warm and cozy. This one's incredibly coarse. That's basically 2 inches by 4 or 5 inches. So a lot of material goes through. We're not trying to get very fine compost out of this, especially early on in this composting flow. When we get to this metal rack shelving system, it's a little bit finer. It's probably a little closer to 3/4, or yeah, I guess that's about a 3/4 inch gap. And the material can still fall down. You can see the coarse stuff down towards the bottom that can get another round or sent to the beginning or sent elsewhere. But what's falling through this one, it's definitely not finished compost, but that's some pretty nice material. The quality of this is nice, but we can also take this and send it once more through the next one, and by the time it goes through there, it's pretty well sifted and ready for the garden. Huge bonus there. Right now, as I look out, the yard is still very open. There's a huge amount of food scraps and soaked grain and leaves outside, and there's no snow. So the hens will prefer being out in this big, open, diverse context as much as possible. But as things get colder, having this dialed in and worked out so that it's ready for them will be immensely valuable. I might even describe it as a critical way for the older hens to survive and thrive in the cold weather while still getting food, still getting micro life out of the soil, getting sprouts, and facilitating both the aeration, the scratching, and the filtering of the compost we need for spring. These sorts of little upgrades don't really seem like much if you're not into composting or chicken stuff, but really it's like these small iterative improvements that I think aggregated over time make for systems that are very robust and resilient. So little things rather than big showy, look at this amazing improvement. It's just like, hey, this is a nice boop step up, quite literally, for the hens and for our system. It has me excited about the quality the compost will be able to generate as it moves through the system over winter. Trialing a few different ways of hanging these. So this one just has a carabiner over this 14 gauge wire. A little sketchy because I think it puts a little load on the frame of the structure itself, although it hasn't been a problem. It's on a single point, so I can rock it back and forth to shake it. The second iteration was to take some garden staves that we found on the side of the road and simply slide them and push them into the compost below and behind the fencing material. And that makes for 2 points of contact that are very sturdy. You can see this one just hooked over that, so it's not going to fall off and crush a hen. And it puts the load bearing of this ramp of compost down into the earth, which I think is pretty helpful. And then the most malleable option is just screws periodically that hold the option of laying these ramps throughout the line, all the way down the line at various points. If there's one point of contact, that's fine enough. If there's two, it's quite stable. And you can see these metal racks, which are quite a bit heavier. The stakes are higher. If these were to fall on a hen, it would be not a good thing. You can see there's a screw there and a screw there. So unless there's a very strong uplifting force, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to slide down. Same thing here. This one I have upside down so that it holds the material in just a little bit more. You could do flat things that have wooden boards on the side, certainly, to keep it in a corral. But the same idea, there's a little screw there to keep it from moving around unless I go and lift it. These sorts of items you can buy new at a box store. These are going to be very expensive for anything like this. If you look on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever the equivalent is in your area, people have this kind of stuff going away all the time. But I wonder, you could probably even use pallets as your baseline and maybe put 2x4 welded wire fencing or 1x1 inch metal fencing material on that, and then get something that's nearly free. Be creative. I bet you could figure out something that's an analog that costs next to nothing where you live. But enough of my talking, and for the hen's sake too, and for our little rooster, I'm going to go ahead and pile up a couple of these and let them start having some fun.